Hello, this is Oliver and welcome to another very entertaining tutorial. Before we get started, make sure to subscribe to our channel to don't miss our tutorials. Leave any comments, let us know which tutorials you like to have next. And now let's go into this tutorial. This is part 2 of our last week's tutorial. And first, this is what we will create today. So some very cool like electric wave effect. The cool thing is, again, it's 100% After Effects, no third parties, and so yeah, let's get started. First, make a new composition. Go to Composition, New Composition, and call that wave _1. Make it HD or whatever size you like. In this case, should be something around HD because we need that as an asset for our waves in the final comp. So give him, let's say, 5 seconds. That should be fine. Black background. We have a frame rate here in Europe of 25 frames, but you can use frame rate you like. Square pixels, hit OK. Okay, so as in the last tutorial, which was this one here, with a CC ball action, some particle effects in 3D, and this is mainly the same technique. So we will start by creating a new solid. So go to Layer, New Solid, make it HD, black background, hit OK. The next is we will put some fractal noise on it. So type in fractal noise. Here we go, in your effects and presets, and simply drop that onto your black solid. Let's rename that for now to call that particle _1. So that we're fine with that. So before we change anything here, we drop also a CC ball action on that. And we will play with the settings. So first, important the twist property from x-axis to blue, which is nothing new, and then play with the twist angle, and you see that happens so far. Okay, and let's increase the grid spacing to, let's say, 3, and bring the ball size down to something like 50. That's it for now. Okay, so I will hide the CC ball action for now. And I go to fractal noise. I will change the settings from soft linear to block and bring the complexity down to let's say 1.3. And I go to my transform settings and I will uncheck uniform scaling and bring the height up to something like that. Let's say 600 should be fine, full value. You can always overdo that here by grabbing the numbers here, but 600 should be fine for now. And the width, we can leave it as 100. That should make it okay. So we need also a directional blur. So go to the effects and presets and type in blur, and you will find the directional blur something around here. Okay, let's type in directional blur. Directional blur. And simply drop that between the CC ball action and the fractal noise. And we wanna increase the length and make sure that's the right direction. So if you go here with these settings with the wheel, you see top to bottom is fine, so you can leave it on 0 and simply scale it up so that you get this result. And now if you turn on CC ball action, you will have cool like bands hanging from top to bottom. Okay, so this is the first step. So what we will do now is we will create a lot of different assets here that we reuse and pre-render as MOV files to compose them later on. So I'd like to have a workflow that makes it quite easy to manipulate all these settings so that you can render a bunch of different electrical and particle style layouts to get a very cool result later on. Okay? So to do so, make a new composition, go to composition, new, and call that matte. Make it the same size as the particle layer, so in our case HD, 5 seconds length is okay, and hit OK, black background. Okay, next is we need a new solid, layer new solid, make that white, and hit OK. Now we scale that to, let's say, 1/6 of the whole comp in the height, and hold down shift and bring it all the way to the top so that it's out of screen. Okay, next is we animate that over time from top to bottom. So let's say P for position, hit the stopwatch, go to frame, let's say 3 seconds, or frame 75 if you're on frame mode. So let's switch that by simply alt click that, no, not alt click, string click that. You can switch between frames and time settings. So let's go to frame 75 and bring it all the way down, hold down shift. So that's straight direction. So this is the animation for now. So if you don't have any idea what we do here, so don't be afraid. It will be self-explaining later in this tutorial. Okay, so this is the animation for now. I like to blur these edges here. So let's put in a directional blur again. Directional blur, and crank that up so that we have a nice edge here. Something around 250 should be fine. Okay, so now we've got this thing from top to bottom. Okay, so we go back to our wave 1, go to your project settings and look for the matte and put that onto the comp over the particle and set the transfer mode from the particle layer to Luma matte. So this is what we have right now. Okay, and this is exactly what we need. Okay, so the next is we have to adjust the particle layer so that the particle starts on the top. You can do this by go to the effect and preset settings and play with the CC ball action, or you can bring in a camera or simply drag the layer up to the top so that it fits to the top of the screen. Make sure to hold down shift so everything stays in place, something around so. Yeah, that should be fine. That's okay for now. Okay, so now why we do all this stuff. So first let me show you. Let's make a new adjustment layer. So go to layer, new adjustment layer, and bring this on top, and go to your effects and preset and type in polar coordinates and apply that to the adjustment layer. And now if you change the type of conversation from polar to rect to polar and bring this up, you will see this is the effect. Okay, so that's why we do all this. Now what we have is some issues here. So this is not perfectly aligned, and you will see that later in if you do other things, other effects and the electrical lines, we have to fix that here, and there's a quite easy fix. First let me undo the polar coordinates. This was just to explain what we do here so that you get an idea. I delete that for now, so we're back on place here. So this is what we have, and for the adjustment layer we will rename that to let's say adjust edge. That should explain that. Adjust edge. Okay, what we will do is we will do an offset. Offset. Here we go. Apply that to the adjustment layer and bring the position all the way to the right side. So we make and here you see our issue. Okay, so we will bring in a mask onto the adjustment layer. Set the mask to invert, and now if we can see here we have our lines, our issues. Okay, on this areas here, this is where the mask is. See that here? Okay, and now hit MM on the keyboard and feather the mask a little bit so that it blends perfectly. Okay, so we can use that in all other styles we will create. So we don't know, we don't know, I know exactly, sorry. So we don't have any issues later on, and we can work much faster and get much faster the result we'd like to have. Okay, so I like to render these things out by using it in this style. So you can also put in, of course, the polar coordinates and render your waves out, but I like to have it this way because I can reuse them later on. So this will be my output file. We have to do some little things to give them some more details. So we'd like to have some actions here. So everything is right now very static. Okay, so let's animate our turbulence noise here. So we go to the particle layer, fractal noise, sorry. So we go to the particle layer and go to the fractal noise settings, to the transform settings, and go here to the offset turbulence. And you will see you have left to right, which is not exactly what we like. We need that from top to bottom to animate here the lines a little bit, okay? And maybe it's cool to have the same speed like the mask tool here. So we grab this point with holding down shift. This is important so that everything runs straight, and we go to frame number 1, hit the stopwatch here to animate the offset, and go to frame 75 and bring this all the way down to here. So now we have the animation in the same speed like our mask movement, okay, which is very cool and is a cool result. You see that here it moves perfectly. Okay, you can do settings like you like, so it's up to you to see what happens there. For example, what I did when I did all my settings, I had a second adjustment layer on that, so we can put it here just for showing that. Rename that to polar test, so that I can have a preview of what my final result will look like. And of course I put in a polar coordinates, okay, and rect to polar and 100%. So now this is my result. Maybe I like some more feather here. This is not enough, so I go to my matte layer, double click, and increase the feather here, the blurring, to something around, let's say 500. Let's try this, and we go back to our wave layer. So now that looks much better, not so hard. Okay, perfect. So let's adjust a few ball action settings, because we have here, it's very thick. So let me increase the grid space to, let's say, the 5 again, and bring the ball size even more down to, let's say, 18. So I got some very smooth particles going on there, and this is exactly what we like to have for our first asset. So I will hide the polar test. So this is my result, and I will pre-render that. So I go to my composition, add to render key, say QuickTime. Make sure to go to the format options, and we will use animation as codec preset, and important channels RGB plus alpha channel, and hit OK. And let's see, we will pipe that into our electric wave, and this is called wave number 1. We will save that and render that, and I'll be back after we are finished. So we're done. Let's go back to our wave layer, and if you'd like to keep your layers, then you can go to your project settings and go to the wave 1 layer and make string C and string V on a keyboard to copy that. Make sure to copy that here inside your project, so you have a unique new composition. And let's rename that and call that wave number 2, and we will add a grid. So now we'd like to do the grid. Double click on that. You have all the same settings. You have the matte layer, you have the adjustment layer of the edge, and the polar test. So let's go to the particle layer, and for now solo that and make it no track matte. So let's play with these settings. So we don't need the CC ball action anymore, but of course you can render your own settings. So you can render one with these bands, then you can render another one and change, for example, the contrast. So you get more waves or more particles. You can change the grid spacing. So you can do very different. You can increase the twist angle, okay, and all of this the things you like to do. So you can render more than only one particle layer. So, but in principle, it's always the same. So you always do this. Have your final composition, which looks like this. Track map here. So everything is the same behavior. So you have one line coming up from top to bottom with a mask layer, and you can, of course, render more than only one particle preset. Okay. So as you saw before, we had a lot of presets to have the fun later on in this tutorial. Okay. So, but now we'd like to have the grid. So I will undo this no track matte that I see the whole result. I will delete the CC ball action on this layer. So I have my lines here. And the next thing is I will delete the directional blur also. And I will play with these settings, okay? So this is my layer, and I will bring them back in place so that I have it from top to bottom, because I only have the layer with the fractal noise on it. And I can leave the complexity at 1.3, and I simply just like to adjust the transform settings. So let me scale it up a little bit, and as you see, we have this blending here automatically done with the adjust edge. If you hide that, you will see it does its job perfectly. So the next thing, we'd like to have a grid. So for that, we use an effect called find edges, and simply drop that onto the particle layer. And maybe let's rename that for now from particle to a grid. And everything is white. We have black lines. We need it the other way around. So simply click on invert, and you will have wonderful white lines and a black background. And if you do the polar test, and if you set this again to Luma matte, you will have wonderful lines over time, like a wonderful wave. We have a little issue here. We have some lines, they stay in place, and this is because our grid layer is at the very bottom. So you can adjust that by selecting the grid layer and simply move them up a little bit so that everything is out of this last frames. So everything here is perfectly fading away. So this is the effect. Okay. Now we will render that also. So go again, composition, add to render key, again, QuickTime, animation codec, RGB and alpha channel, hit OK, call that with wave 1, let's say wave 2 grid, which is fine, save, and I'll be back after we rendered that. We're finished. I go back to my wave 2, and again, you can copy that to keep the basic layout, which could be useful because now we'd like to have some electrical like space patterns on that. So let me duplicate that, string C, string V, or even right click, copy paste, no, select it, edit, copy, and then edit paste, or shortcut string C, string V. Okay, so we have wave 2 grid. Let's call that, rename that to wave 3 grid 2, which is a bit more better. So let's double click on that. So everything is like we had it before. Again, I go to my node track mat and undo the polar test. And this is my animation. And let's get rid of these find edges. And of course, you can do more than only this one. So you can render more presets, going to the grid settings, going to the fractal noise settings, and playing again with the transform settings. In this case, you can scale this up like so. You can give them more segments in the height. So this is up to you, how many presets you'd like to render. Okay, but this is the basic idea. Okay, so I go back to my first settings. Sorry, so undo that. So this was the start where we left our last render. So now let's bring in some patterns. So we simply delete the fine edges. This is the result, and it looks quite easy, quite cool, but not exactly the way we'd like it. So I'd like to play with the contrast because this is too black and this is too white. So I'd like to bring the contrast very close together so that we have a very cool mix between blacks and whites, so that we can blend that later on better. Okay, and I'd like to have it the same way like the grid before so that it fits perfect to the grid. Okay, so this is it for now. Let's check that track mat, luma mat, and let's check the polar coordinates. This is my animation. That looks cool, like some metal pattern going on there. Okay, so let's render that out. I will do that without the polar test, but you can do as you like. You can of course do it with all of these polar tests. Okay, so I rendered it out. I'll be back right now. So I just did the render of this animation. And of course, again, here you can do different variations. It makes sense to have more than only 2 or 3 presets, so it gives more detail to your electric wave. And so that's why you should make more than only one render of that. But I think you get it what to do. Well, I'm leaving on the right way, so sorry. What I want to have now, in addition to that, is some electrical flashes going on there. So for that, I simply will hide my grid layer and make a new solid, layer new solid, and I will call that flash. Hit OK. Of course, a black background, sorry for that. So layer, solid settings, and going to all the way black, hit OK. And what we like to have here is a lightning effect. So go to your effects and presets and type in advanced lightning. This is what we like to have, and apply that to the flash layer. So this is what we have now, and this is because we have the adjust edges on. So we make this off for now and simply go to the top and bring this one all the way here like so, and let's play with the advanced lightning settings. So what we need here, so I put back the direction to the bottom, which is not important for now. So bring this one to the top so that it's out of screen. And what we need here, sorry, is a mask. So first we select the flash layer and bring in a mask. and then we go to the alpha obstacle and bring this all the way up to, let's say, 30 or 40. So this is something you have to test around, because this cuts the lightning on this position. And if you play with the mask and bring it down, you see you can make the lightning move from top to bottom, and this is exactly what we need. And we also got some little flashes here, so that it came down to the mask. Okay, so this is what we like to have, so that it comes from top to bottom. And of course we animate the mask in the same speed as the layer, the adjust edge layer. Okay. Sorry, the adjust bar. Sorry, this is when you live record a tutorial and have no idea what to do. So of course this is we animate the mask of the flash in the same speed as the matte layer. Okay, so sorry for that. sorry. This is I try to do better in the next one. So okay, let's go on and see what we can do with that. So I go to frame number 1, and I will change my flash layer to Luma matte, and I'll bring the mask up to the top, so you can see that here we have the starting point of the flash. So I come over to here, and I will animate the mask. So hit MM on the keyboard and click the stopwatch on the mask path and go to frame 75, which is the end of our animation, and bring this mask, hold on shift, down to the bottom. Okay. So as you see, we have the same issue here with this lightning strike as with the fractal noise layer before. So in the last example, we simply moved the layer, but in this case, we simply move the mask. So with MM on the keyboard, you go to the last keyframe and just bring the mask up a touch, so up to here, so everything fades out perfectly. Here we go. Okay. And now, if you go to your adjust edges and to the polar test, this is our result. Okay, so let's unhide the mask for now. So you got very cool electric pulses going from the center to the outside of your electrical shockwave. Okay, and of course we will render that with these two lightnings. Okay, and we will do another few renders with more than this lightning. So, but first let me render that out. And before we will render that, we want to make sure that we have white thunders, so we can colorize them later in the fun part of the tutorial. We are close. We are very close. Okay, so for that I go to my core settings and to the glow settings, and first of all, let's bring the glow color to white, and bring down the glow opacity very close to, let's say, 10 or so. We just like to have a little bit of glow, not too much, because we will add that later on. Okay, so now we will render. So we're done. So let's first unhide the adjust edges and the polar thing. So this is our animation we simply rendered out now. So what you can do is simply duplicate the flash layer, string D on a keyboard, bring this beneath the last, or you can leave it there, so it's up to you, and duplicate the matte layer too, string D, that's important, to bring it above this layer, and everything stays the same. But if you go to the flash layer and you adjust these settings, so let's have this flash here, and make sure you see, this is because of the mask you have. Make sure that you have a very straight top to bottom thunder, and let's select both of these layers. One more copy, D on the keyboard, sorry, flash D, matte D above the flash, and go to the flash layer and bring this up to here, and this one to here. So now we have this. We have 3 flashes from top to bottom. And let's do the adjust edge. So this is what we have. And let's see how it looks like with the polar coordinates. So now look at this. Very cool electric flashes from the center to the outside of the ring. This is exactly what we like to have. We will render that also, and then we will start with the fun part. So now let's start with the fun part. So first, I did a complete new project. I go to composition, new composition, give him 500 frames or 10 seconds. Make it HD, let's say here, 1920 by 1080, 25 frames and a black background, hit OK. So the first thing is we'd like to bring in our pre-rendered assets. So we did the Thunder 1, 2, we did Wave Grid and the Wave 1. Okay, I import that and this is what we have so far. So I drop in the Wave 1 moth, and this is the first one we did without polar coordinates, as you remember. And so I have to bring in first the polar coordinates. So I go to my effect and presets and type in polar coordinates, double click on here and change it from rect to polar and 100%, and here we go. This is what we have now. Okay, so the first thing is I like to have some kind of shock inside. So the first few frames I like to have it faster, and then it should be slowing down until it fades out. Okay, for that select the wave 1, right click on this layer and go to time and enable time remapping. So you get 2 keyframes which represents the beginning of the clip and the end of the clip, and everything between is the time we'd like to tweak. So I go to frame 25 and make a keyframe and select my created keyframe and the last keyframe and drop that all the way to front, let's say to frame number 10. Okay, so now I have a fast start and then it slows down. Okay, I like to ease that, so right click on the keyframe and say keyframe assistant easy ease in and hit OK. So now you get this arrow here, and if you go to your curve control, you see these this curve here, and if you zoom in, here we go, you see this handle here, and I'd like to ease that handle a bit more so that we have a perfect line from here to here, so that you get a very nice curve and a very organic behavior. So this is what we have now. So it fades, and then that's very cool. Okay, I'm fine with that. Click on this and back to the keyframe editor. And the next thing is I go to something like here, zoom it out, and I like to duplicate that. So string D on the keyboard, and let me offset that a little bit. So here, and never forget, change the transfer mode from normal to add. We can do that here also, add. So keep in mind, add. So everything is additional. So now we have 2 of these waves coming up from the center and blending perfect together. Okay, so let me rotate that. So R on the keyboard and rotate that so that it's something like this. So it's just not the same. And I'd like to have another wave coming out from here, string D on the keyboard, and bring this something like here, and maybe scale it a little bit down, something like so. And here we go. Nice, very nice. Maybe I like to rotate that a bit, R on the keyboard, and rotate it all the way back to, let's say, -60 or 62, something like that. So this is the basic idea how to set up these settings. Okay. One thing we like to achieve right now is we'd like to bring in a bulge effect to give them a more organic look and feel. So I go to my first wave, I solo that for now and go to a point where everything is on the end, something like here, and I go to my effect and preset and say bulge and double click on that and bring in the bulge effect. Let me scale that up a little bit to something like so that it fits all of this, and make sure you have always the same horizontal and vertical radius. Okay, And now if you play with the bulge height, you see what happens there. Okay, so you can give them some kind of organic look and feel. Okay, so I go to frame number 1. I bring the bulge radius to something, the bulge height to something like -1, and hit the stopwatch to create a keyframe. Then I go, let's say, to frame number 10. This is where we have the fast behavior, and I bring the bulge all the way up to, let's say, 1. And after that, I go to frame, let's say, 40, and bring the bulge down again to 0. Okay, so now this is what I have now. I got a much more impact on the center. Okay, and I like to have this impact also on my wave 1. So I go to my bulge on frame number 1 of my wave number 1, copy that string C on the keyboard, go to the beginning of my wave number 2, and paste that here. So I got the same effect here. Unsolo that, solo this one. So I got the same effect here. Okay. And let's see what we have so far. So this is, yeah, that looks quite cool. Okay, bring in some more of the fun stuff. Let's drag in wave number 2. Again, set to add. And here we go. This is our grid, as you see. I like to have the bulge effect the same way on the grid like on the wave 1. So I go to wave 1, effects, bulge, copy, wave 2, paste. Here we go. So now this is what we have now. That looks very awesome. Okay. I like to have more copies of that, of course. So I go to D on the keyboard. I will scale it up a little bit. And I will rotate that so it doesn't look the same way, something like so. And some frames later. And again, D on the keyboard. Bring this to frame, let's say 14. And scale it down. Let's have a look. Let's solo that. Here it comes. Perfect. Looks great. So this is what we have so far. That looks amazing. Okay. Maybe we bring in another one. Let's bring in the wave number 3, which is our pattern layer. And again, this one was rendered without polar coordinates. So I go to my wave number 1 and copy the polar coordinates and the bulge. Go to frame number 1, select it and paste that. Of course, I have to copy also the polar coordinates, string C, and paste, and bring it above the bulge. It's important. And this is what we have. And again, change to add. Here we go. And do another copy, D on the keyboard. Select the wave layer, D on the keyboard, and bring it the way up. Here we go. And scale that down. Here we go. Yeah, nice. Looks very nice. So you get the idea how to manipulate that, okay? So what we like to have is a rotation of all of these rings, okay? So we'd like to have the rotation clockwise. So for that, I go to wave number 1 and type in transform and apply a transform effect. I will stopwatch click the rotation, alt stopwatch click the rotation, and we'll type in expression. I use times or multiply 150, and that will automatically over time rotate my my layer. So let me solo that so you can see better. So this will rotate my layer. It's a bit too, oh boy, let's leave it like this. So you can change the speed. If you type 50, it will rotate slower. If you increase the value, it will increase higher. Okay, so that this is up to you. Okay, good. But let me do some handy thing, which could be quite handy. So let me bring in a layer, new adjustment layer, and let me rename that to rotation underscore speed. So this is something that could be handy. So now to this, with the adjustment layer selected, go to effects, expression controls, and bring in a slider control and call that rotation rings. Okay, and let's go to our expression in wave number 1 and select the 150, and with this 150 selected, go to select the rotation speed, take the pick width tool and drag that onto the slider. Okay, and hit return. So now you can adjust the speed of the rotation over the rotation rings here in the adjustment layer, which is quite cool. You can hide that layer, so there's no impact. It's just to control the speed of this. And if you now go to the wave 1 morph and go to transition transform and copy that and bring this onto the wave to the other layers and string V on the keyboard to paste that, now everything rotates. Of course, if you enable the things here. And now, if you play with the slider, you can see you can animate the rotation on this adjustment layer for later on. So just to get an idea, okay? Okay, let's bring in some lines, or first let me colorize that. So we bring in a new adjustment layer, new adjustment layer, and let's call that color correction. And we bring in some curves. Select the layer, double click the curves, bring it in. I go to the red channel, bring down the red channel and bring up the blue channel to give them some bluish color. And maybe let's play with the green channel also. Something like that. And I go back to my RGB channel and bring in some more light and a bit more contrast here. So that looks amazing. Okay. So now let's bring in the last few assets we just rendered. So there were the lightning strikes. I bring that in beneath the rotation speed. And here we have the lightning strikes. Let me solo that. They're here. And even if I solo the color correction, they're not color corrected. And this is because of the layer. So these layers, these lightning strikes are white. If you like to colorize them, you can tint them, of course, or you can leave them white. It's up to you. I think the white electric waves looks great. Let me make a few copies of that. One for here, one for here, one for here. And let me rotate that, R on the keyboard, and give them some variation here. Again, R on the keyboard. Let me rotate it this direction and scale it down a bit. Something like so. And again here, R on the keyboard. Let me rotate that and scale it even down a little bit. So now we have the light strikes also here. Let me do a preview. So this is what we have so far. Looks very nice. Try to keep this tutorial as short as possible because I think you got the idea what to do with this and what to do with more variations of these elements we created before. Let's do some lines here as we had in the tutorial. That's quite easy. So go to Layer, New Solid, and call this Lines. Hit OK. Make it comp size, of course. bring it above the color correction. That's important because we'd like to color correct that later. And bring in a mask, elliptical mask, and go to the center of your screen and shift string drag that so that you have a perfectly circle. Sorry. And we need an effect called Vegas. Drop that onto the lines layer. And if you hide the mask tool, you will see, first go to mask path under stroke. You will see the lines here, And you can play with the settings. Let's try 8 segments. You can play with the width of these things. You can play, of course, with the color. I like to have them white because we'd like to tint them later on. And you can position it as you like. So make sure, if you like to change the scale of the mask, you have the mask path, and that could be a pain in the ass if you have the mask path and you try to shrink that down. There's a shortcut. Type string T on the keyboard. You got this white box here, and now you can scale that perfectly again with shift and string, and you can scale that ring perfectly so that it fits to your design. Okay. Also make sure here to change the mode to add so you can see through the shape layer. Okay, that's important. And let's make more than one copy of the lines. And of course, we like to have the lines. Sorry, we like to have the lines rotating. So for that, we have the rotation here. And we alt stopwatch click the rotation, and we say time, and of course times or multiplied. And now it's important, say minus 150. So minus is important. So this should make it rotate counterclockwise. Okay, hit return. And now everything is moving counterclockwise. And make sure to copy also the bulge effect on this lines layer from wave number 1. Bulge, string C to the lines, string V. Now we have the lines also coming up with this organic look and feel. And make sure to adjust the bulge size to the ring size. So let me scale that down. Here we go, something like so. And again, make sure you have, in this case, 147 by 147, so everything is perfect organized. And now this is the effect. Maybe you like to bring the bulge height on the beginning more down, and so it comes much more up, and then it stays here. So that looks perfect. Now let me duplicate the lines. String D, I go to my mask, MM on the keyboard, click the mask path, string T on the keyboard, and let me scale it up like so. Let me make only 3 segments. Let me increase the width and so on. Let me play with the hardness. So I got a bit more harder edges here, so that looks quite cool. I think you get the idea. Again, the bulge is not affecting because the bulge radius is way too slow. So I go to my bulge selected, and you see the radius is much too small. So I have to scale that up, and you see the behavior here. So this is quite cool. Let's see how it will look like. Get these flashing lights, and the L1 came out, so that's cool. But let me bring this much more up. So I go to here, let's say 260 by 260. Again, it's up to you. It's your creativity. So here we go. Maybe I'd like to have this a little bit later coming. So offset that here. So here we go. First these lines, then this one coming up. So okay, perfect. You got the idea. What we do now is you can make more than only 2 copies. Select all the lines layer, pre-compose them, composition, layer, pre-compose, call that lines. Make sure to move all attributes, hit OK, and double click the lines layer, and let's colorize them. layer, new adjustment layer. Again, we'd like to have the curves. Curves, hard to do so. Curves, and I like to tint them red, so I go to red channel, push that, go to the blue, bring this down, and also the, green layer, bring that down, so I got a dark red. Okay, and let's play with the RGB settings to get a better result on that. So now this is because of the hard edges here, so I go to my lines layer and let's play with the hardness a bit, so we got a much smoother result here. That looks cool. And another thing we have to do is the mask here. We have to go to our lines layer and set the mask from add to none. And we can do so also for all lines, so make sure to set the masks from add to none, which is quite okay. So we got a perfect style rings here. I go back to my comp and let's see. Set the transfer mode from normal to add. And this is what we have. Very, very cool. Also, you got the idea. The next thing is we like to have some big lights here. How to achieve that? It's also quite easy. I try to hurry. I go to layer, composition, new composition. I will call that light. And our original comp size is HD, so we need 1/4 of the resolution. So make sure to have log aspect ratio selected. Click on the width and say 1920 divided by 4 and hit return. So that will automatically create a composition that is divided by 4. And we'd like to bring in now a rectangle tool and draw in a shape layer, something like that. Okay, I like to center that, so I go to my align tool and center that top to bottom and left to right, top to bottom. And I like to have a no stroke, make sure to have the stroke off, and I have a not 100% pure white filling, so something grayish should be fine. And I like to have a little bit more realistic looking, so go to layer styles and bring in some inner glow. And go to the inner glow settings, set the color to black and the transfer mode from blend to normal, transfer mode from screen to normal. And now you can see these dark edges. That gives me a much more realistic look of a light panel. And of course you can play with the opacity and the size and increase the size a little bit, just a touch, and bring the opacity down so that we got a very, very nice light panel look and feel. Okay, so this is the lights composition. I go back to my main comp and I make another composition, new composition, and I will call that a light band. And make sure to make this composition again HD, or what your original comp size was. In our case 1920 by 1080. Complete length, 10 seconds, hit OK. And now go to the project settings and bring in the light composition, drag that onto here. And I need 4 copies. So string D on the keyboard 3 times. I go to my first light, go to the align tool and align that to the left. I go to my last light, align that to the right. And now I select all of my light layers and simply distribute them horizontally. So everything is perfectly lined up. May we like to scale them a little bit. We can scale it here in this composition size, in this comp. Okay. Let's try this. And I go back to my main comp and bring in the light band. We do this above the lines. So this is what we have. And of course, as you maybe mentioned, we need the polar coordinates again. And we also will copy the bulge and the transform tool from our wave layer number 1. String C on the keyboard, go to the light band, string V to paste that, and here we go. It's easy as that. And this is the animation. And as you see, if you like to animate that, we have our rotation speed and we can animate these lights also, so they are rotating with the particle and wave layers. Okay, so let's do so to see what we can do. Stopwatch, go to the last frame and bring this up to, let's say, something like that. Here we go. So now everything rotates. Very perfect. One thing we have with the light band is the bulge. So select the bulge and you will see this is much too big. So let's bring this down to something like here it starts, something like 311 in our case. 311. Here we go. And now this is the effect. And we go to the bulge height. We'll animate that. So we bring this down to here. And you will see it goes all the way up. Let's hit U on the keyboard so we can see the keyframes. So it comes up like so, overblends, and then it goes into this direction, into this position. Maybe we like to scale it layer so we have the light layers here between those lines. That could be fine. So let's scale them over time. So I go to my bulge here, hit S on the keyboard, make a keyframe, hit UU on the keyboard, go to my bulge height end frame and scale that all the way down so that it fits perfectly between those two ring lines. Okay, so now this is the animation, and maybe we like to scale it here also a little bit down so that it comes from the center, and maybe we like to blend it. So go to T for the opacity. Let's go to frame number 8. Hit the stopwatch, go to frame number 0 and bring the opacity down. So now everything should work smoothly. Okay. Of course, we like to tint the band layer. So we will do so by applying a curves layer again. So go to effect and presets, type in curves and go to the red channel, bring this up and you will see it starts tinting in the red one. We go to the blue one, bring this down, get some orangish look, and the green one to get a much more red look. This is what we have. We go to the RGB settings. We can change here the lightness of the thing, but we like to introduce some glow effect on that light panel. So I leave it as it is for now. I type in a glow, bring in a glow effect. That looks quite cool. I go to a point where it's very big so I can see better what's going on there. And I'll firstly bring up the threshold and the intent a bit down, and I will increase the glow radius, something like that should make it perfect. And I like to have another copy of the glow effect, string V on a keyboard, and I will bring this all the way up and the threshold a bit down so I got much more deeper glow going on there. So this is what we have so far, and because this is rotating, you got these thick lines here. Let me have a look into the lights layer if we set up everything right. So this is because of these this little darkened edges here. So let me play with the layer styles a bit. Let me bring the opacity a bit more down and maybe the size a bit more up, so that could be make a better result. Yeah, it's quite hard. Maybe we have to adjust the glow settings. So I go to my effects controls, to my first glow, and maybe the intensity down and the radius. Yeah, could be something like that, should be fine. But the magic starts, we will apply motion blur on that. So because this is rotating and moving, and so this is what it will looks like. You can play with the on the lights layer with the tint of the light panel. So If you go to the fill options and bring it into much more deeper gray, you will see you got much less light coming out there. So this is up to you. You can adjust this until you have the design you like to have it. I like it the way before. I think this is okay. Maybe I increase the motion blur, but yeah, you got the idea how to bring in these lights. And the last thing we have to adjust, of course, is a shine. So what we did was we take our wave and wave and wave layer, some of these layers, string D on a keyboard and bring them all the way down to the last layer, okay? Then we simply pre-compose them, layer, pre-compose, and call that shine. Hit OK. And now we apply a CC radial, not here, but on the effects and presets, of course, CC radial blur to the layer, and we put that to fading zoom and give him some amount. Here we go. Can you see that? That's quite cool. And because everything is rotating, here you got, this is what you have. Okay. And last but not least, layer, new solid. We call that BG for background. Hit OK. We apply a ramp effect to that. Ramp, gradient ramp. We bring that beneath the shine, of course, and change the white to some darkish blue. Something like so. And bring the black point to something like here, and the blue point all the way down to here, so that we got a light, slightly bluish color from the left side. So that should make it. So that's it for now. Hope you got the idea how to achieve this electrical wave effect, and hopefully you enjoyed this tutorial. Make sure to subscribe to our channel. Make sure to don't miss the next tutorial. This will be also a 100% After Effects tutorial with no third parties. This is what we will do there. Here we go. That's what we will create in our next tutorial. Make sure to don't miss it. Hope we see us the next time. My name is Oliver. Thank you for watching, and bye.